His name was Major Chukwuma Nzeogwu. To his friends, he was Kaduna. To the soldiers who served under him, he was a legend. Charismatic, disciplined, a true patriot. But the Nigeria he served was sick.
Mr. INEC Chairman, make sure I win this election. Understood? Understood.
Crippled by corruption, tribal politics, and a government many saw as rotten to the core. A nation drowning in the greed of its leaders. And while others complained in private, Nzeogwu was the man who had the guts to do what no one else would. He decided to perform surgery. His solution to this sickness was swift, radical, and bloody. It was called the January 15th coup of 1966, and to the families of the men he killed that night, he wasn't a surgeon. He was something else entirely, a traitor, a murderer, the man who lit the fuse that would eventually burn Nigeria to the ground in a bloody civil war. So when this man, this hero, this villain, was found dead on a dusty road in Nsukka, with his eyes plucked from their sockets, one question echoed through the chaos of the ongoing civil war. Who killed Major Kaduna Nzeogwu? To understand the man, you have to understand the dream. And the dreamer. Nzeogwu was an idealist, forged at the prestigious Royal Military Academy Sandhurst. He believed fiercely in a unified Nigeria, a nation he felt was being bled dry by corrupt politicians and greedy businessmen who have refused to allow the nation grow. An example of one of the things that happened in his time can be seen today in Nigeria. Dangote Refinery, for example, is literally fighting oil cabals that have held the nation hostage since the beginning of time itself.
The gates are sealed. Not one drop of his fuel gets out. Because if it does, we are finished.
The oil marketers accuse the refinery of monopoly. They say it is cutting fuel prices in the country in order to kill their businesses.
What do? We will fight back through the trade union.
This is why I like you, Mr. Emeka. We think very much alike.
Meanwhile, I have already instructed them to block his refinery. If that fails, we will fall back to plan B.
But isn't cheaper fuel prices the very thing Nigerians are yearning for in this period of extreme economic hardship and high inflation? A period when many people go to bed hungry and workers sleep in their workplace because they cannot afford something as basic as transportation fare. I will let you be the judge. Now, back to the story. As legend has it, the passion Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nzeogwu had to see his country Nigeria freed from all forms of corruption made him a paradox to his fellow officers. To some, like Major General Domkat Bali, he was everything a young officer should be. A nice, charismatic and disciplined officer, genuinely patriotic, a man admired and respected by his colleagues. But to others, that same passion looked like something far more dangerous. Lieutenant Colonel Patrick Anwuna saw him as a radical and an inwardly insubordinate young officer, full of his own ideas, who had no regard for senior officers. So which was he? A patriot or a radical? A disciplined soldier or an insubordinate rebel? The truth is, he was all of them. And it was this dangerous combination of patriotism and rebellion that would soon set him on a collision course with the very nation he loved. Before they struck, Nzeogwu initiated a nighttime military exercise codenamed Operation Damisa, which translates to Operation Tiger in English. He convinced his superiors that he was training soldiers for new fighting techniques. Meanwhile, under the hood, it was meant to equip the coup plotters with the necessary skill they needed to strike.
Sir, the final readiness reports the men are sharp. They would follow you into hell itself.
Tell me, Corporal, when a surgeon finds a cancer, a tumor that is killing the body, what is his duty?
To cut it out, sir, to save the patient.
Exactly. But the operation is dangerous. The hand that holds them must not tremble. We will start this revolution tonight with the Premier, Sir Ahmadu Bello. Our objective is to eliminate the leadership in every region of the country, north, south, east, and west. Do you understand, Corporal?
Yes, sir.
On January 15th, 1966, he turned this routine nighttime training exercise into a full-blown coup. He and his co-conspirators swept through the northern capital of Kaduna, executing the Premier, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Samuel Ladoke Akintola, and Finance Minister Festus Okotie Igbo. In total, 22 government officials lost their life that day, in a sad event that changed the future of the nation. At this point, Nzeogwu had crossed the Rubicon, and there was no going back. Hang on till the end of the story, and I will give you access to the full story about January 15th. Back to this story. The revolution Nzeogwu started on July 15th ate its own. The coup sputtered and failed in the south. It gave rise to a new military leader, General Aguiyi Ironsi, and his primary task was to restore order. His solution? Arrest the very men who put him in power. For his trouble, Nzeogwu was thrown into Kiri-Kiri prison. Who would have thought that a revolutionary would be locked away by the revolution he started? A year later, the nation he had tried to save was tearing itself apart. You see, the January 15th coup was not seen as a national revolution. It was seen as an Igbo coup. And looking at the bloody facts, it's not hard to see why. The pattern was undeniable. The killers were mostly Igbo. The victims were the most powerful leaders of the North and West. And the man who ultimately took power in the chaos was himself an Igbo general, Aguiyi Ironsi. To the rest of the country, it didn't look like a national cleansing. It looked like a tribal takeover. For decades, that was the accepted story. But recently, in a newly launched book titled A Journey in Service, a voice from the very heart of Nigeria's military establishment offered a different perspective in his autobiography. General Ibrahim Babangida, a man who was himself a victim of one of the other coups that followed the failed revolution of Major Nzeogwu, argues that Nzeogwu's intent was tragically different from the outcome. In the description down below, you can find the link to the story of how Major Ibrahim Babangida was almost killed as military head of state, and how Sani Abacha saved his life. Watch anytime. According to Babangida, Nzeogwu was a misguided patriot, a true believer in one Nigeria. His plan was national, not tribal. The catastrophic failure to execute the coup in the south and the lopsided casualty list wasn't the original design. It was a fatal botch that made a nationalist revolution look like a tribal conspiracy. But intent no longer mattered. The perception was reality. And that reality led to a wave of horrific, retaliatory massacres of Igbo civilians living in the north. Hunted and slaughtered, the Igbo people fled back to their ancestral homeland in the east. And in May of 1967, they declared independence. A new nation, Biafra, was born from the ashes of the failed coup. Its new leader, Colonel Ojukwu, freed the famous plotter, thinking he'd gained a powerful, charismatic ally for his new army.
How have you been, my friend?
He was wrong.
Major, you are a hero to our people. They see you as the man who stood up to the corrupt politicians.
Fight with us.
I didn't participate in the coup to create a smaller country for one tribe. I did it to create a better Nigeria for everyone. Secession is a mistake.
A mistake? They are unaliving our people in the north. We have no choice. Your one Nigeria is a fantasy that died in the last coup.
Then we must build it again. Confederation maybe, but to put ourselves off completely, it's suicide. If this country disintegrates, I'll go.
Then you are either with us or you are against us. And I suggest you decide very carefully where you stand.
That decision was made for him. After that meeting, the trust between the two men was shattered. Ojukwu, now deeply suspicious of Nzeogwu's loyalty, couldn't risk having a popular pro-Nigeria idealist near his troops. South, he moved to neutralize him. Nzeogwu was officially suspended from all Biafran military activities. Ojukwu gave him the fancy rank of brigadier, a title meant to appease the public, but stripped him of all soldiers under his command and no staff to operate with. He was even banned even training troops. I mean, we all remember what happened the last time Nzeogwu trained troops at night, right? Now, as a general with no army, he was reduced to an idle man, a mere observer. But Nzeogwu was not a man to sit idle.
My dear Obasanjo, you have no doubt heard a lot of rumors about my relations with Ojukwu. We obviously see things quite differently after what he did to my supporters in January 1966.
I'm sorry, I cannot entrust Biafran soldiers to you. Your loyalty is questionable.
He is also worried about my popularity among his own people. I was to be put back in prison, but he was afraid of repercussions. Right now, I am not allowed contact with troops, nor am I permitted to operate on the staff. One gentleman's agreement we have is that I can carry on with whatever pleases me. I will create a new Nigerian army inside Biafra with Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, and all other ethnic groups.
A new Nigerian army. It was a beautiful, noble, and completely impossible dream. The grand vision of a pan-Nigerian force forged in the heart of a secessionist state was the ultimate expression of Nzeogwu's stubborn idealism. But the reality on the ground was far messier. He was a general with no army. A man with a gentleman's agreement to do as he pleased. And what pleased Nzeogwu was to fight. So, if Ojukwu wouldn't give him soldiers, he would find his own. Frustrated, he began his own private war. He started to informally conscript young men, pulling them from their units for unauthorized missions. And here is the tragic irony. The man who dreamt of leading Hausas and Yorubas was now forced to recruit exclusively from the young Igbo men fighting for Biafran independence. The soldiers were reportedly reluctant. To be conscripted by the legendary Nzeogwu didn't just mean fighting. It meant being taken on dangerous, almost suicidal raids behind enemy lines. His grand dream of a united army had been reduced to this: leading a phantom squad on unauthorized missions against federal troops. He had become a rogue operator, a ghost, fighting for a country that no longer existed, inside a country that didn't want him. July 29, 1967, with the war raging, Nzeogwu's famous courage finally took him a step too far. He was leading another of his signature reconnaissance missions, pushing deep into federal-held territory around Nsukka. His ride for this mission was a piece of battlefield legend, a Biafran Red Devil. With no access to proper military hardware, the Biafran engineers had become masters of invention. They took ordinary Bedford trucks and transformed them into these makeshift armored beasts. It was a stunning testament to Biafran ingenuity, a symbol of their will to fight, with whatever they had. But for all its ingenuity, it was still just a truck wearing a suit of armor. It was heavy, cumbersome, and blind. And on that day, that would make all the difference. On its way, the cumbersome vehicle became immobilized and was quickly surrounded by Nigerian federal troops. They opened fire, but the improvised armor held. Seeing that their effort to penetrate the vehicle had become futile, the federal troops switched to bigger guns. In a final, bitter twist of irony, the weapon that pierced its hull was a 106mm recoilless rifle. The very same anti-tank gun Nzeogwu had used to blast his way into the Sardauna's lodge a year and a half earlier, during the first coup in Nigeria's history. What happened in those final seconds is shrouded in the fog of war, with two starkly different accounts emerging from the chaos. The first version comes from Mamdap, a military driver who claimed to have witnessed the incident. According to him, the attack was swift and final. Nzeogwu and the 2 or 3 other men in the vehicle were killed by the hail of gunfire while still inside. He said it was only when they dragged the bodies out that they realized they had killed the famous Major Nzeogwu. A clean, anonymous kill in the heat of battle. But the generals who saw his corpse, men like Mohammed Shuwa and Abdullahi Shelleng, told a different, more dramatic story. A story that fits the legend of Kaduna Nzeogwu. In their version, Nzeogwu wasn't killed anonymously. Wounded, he burst from the vehicle, faced the federal troops, and in a final act of defiance, shouted in perfect Hausa in words that when translated to English meant, "Don't shoot, it is I, Major Nzeogwu." Was it a quick death trapped in a metal box, or a heroic last stand? The truth died on that road with Nzeogwu, leaving only the legend behind. When the news of his death reached the Nigerian head of state, Yakubu Gowon, he gave a remarkable order. Despite Nzeogwu being an enemy commander killed in combat, Gowon ordered his body be flown to Kaduna and buried with full military honors. Even in death, some Nigerian troops and politicians still respected him. They saw him not as a Biafran rebel.
He was a true soldier, brave, principled, a patriot, even when we disagreed.
But as a misguided Nigerian patriot. A man who, as one general said, organized the 1966 coup with the best of intentions, who was let down by his collaborators. So in the end, who killed Kaduna Nzeogwu? Was it the federal soldier who pulled the trigger? Was it Ojukwu who sidelined him and sent him on a path to a lonely death? Or was it Nzeogwu himself, a man whose fierce, uncompromising love for his country left him with no country to call his own? The answer, like the man himself, remains a complicated part of Nigeria's history. You can find the link to the story of how Major Ibrahim Babangida was almost killed as military head of state, and how Sani Abacha saved his life. Click here. Remember, history is never as simple as it looks. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.